Good morning, everybody. It is the middle of the night, and I have been scrambling to get all of the hardcore Season 7 build guides ready for you so you can have something to play in hardcore Season 7 because it starts next week. So, a couple key things about hardcore Season 7. Number one, it is a rehash of hardcore Season 2. So the rewards for hardcore Season 7 will be the hardcore Season 2 rewards. And the effects will be there as well. So it is the hardcore Season 7 champions. These characters are designed to deal with the hardcore Season 7 champions, but the quick and dirty, that if you need to know, if you don't know any of them, there's going to be a link in the description of this video that will link you to all the hardcore Season 2 stuff. But what you need to know, Avernus Battle Ragers, very, very dangerous. Levitus Ice Guards, very, very dangerous. The Dees Battle Lords, very, very dangerous. If you're any type of crowd control spellcaster, Kenya Experiment, very, very dangerous. As well as the Minoros Taker. All of those are very dangerous, and you need to be very careful about those, so make sure you read up on what they can do. However, with that being said, these characters are all designed to deal with all of them, so that is important. And the second, this video is chaptered, so if you just go to the bar at the bottom where you check the time, you can just click around to whichever build you want to do. You don't have to watch the whole video, or do watch the whole video if that will help you pick your character. I'm also going to be kind of skimming a lot, doing some quick skimming, because I want to get through this fast. So I'm not going to go into super detail. If you do have any questions about any of the builds in these videos, leave a comment. I'll try to address the question, or head into the Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Strimtom, where I stream all the time, and ask some questions so I can get to you as quickly as possible. So I have 7 builds for you today, and without further ado, I'm going to start off with Single Weapon Fighter Paladin. This is one of 2 melee characters on this list, and this is actually the character I'm going to be starting with. So I will be... No, I'm not starting with this character. I'm starting with a similar character, but not exactly this one. There's actually 2 paladins on this list now that I think about it. That was weird, but did I do that? Anyway, this character is extremely powerful. Single Weapon Fighter Paladin is designed to just hit characters with one weapon, do some good damage, do a good job. I actually think I might run this character now that I think about it. I don't know, I'm still on the fence, but I'm doing a paladin for sure. So the idea here is you want to max edge charisma, use charisma to hit and damage, and kind of blow stuff up, which is why you pick a tiefling to start out with a good amount of charisma, and we kind of max out charisma along the way. Single weapon fighting, because you attack very quickly with single weapon fighting, and paladins get a lot of cleave abilities that allow them to kind of chop their way through monsters. So because you need single weapon fighting, you need balance, and you also want to use magic device to protect yourself with shield spell, among other things, and any possible buffs like greater heroism you can throw on yourself during the leveling process. Now, to actually be able to use charisma and damage, you do need to take magical training at level 1, which is not ideal, but then you're going to grab single weapon fighting and work your way down the tree. For this character, I said Warhammer is the weapon of choice, because you can choose Onatar, get Warhammers, and Warhammer hammers are pretty valuable and versatile. There's a lot of good Warhammers in the game. However, if you don't want, you can use longswords. Just grab Sovereign Host instead and take longsword, or sorry, improve critical slashing. End of the day, it doesn't really matter which weapon you pick, just pick something cool, and for this build, it's using Warhammer. So standard single weapon fighting feat line with Quicken, so you can get some spells out quickly in the end game, as well as Force of Personality and Epic Will. This is because several of the effects that the champions will do are will saves, and you don't want to fail them, so every character is going to be designed with high will saves in here. You got Scion of the Moria for some damage, and a lot of the defensive feats along the way, plus Embodiment of Law for some other abilities. Now, heroic enhancement points. This one's pretty straightforward. Lots of points in Knight of the Chalice, taking all the damage along the way, grabbing, extra smites for some more damage, the cleave, the damage, or Exalted Smite, which this is a frontal cleave, as well as Holy Retribution, which is an instant kill and a cleave, and then all the damage and other things along the way. But also Sacred Defender, because Sacred Defender is going to grant you Lay on Hands, tons of extra physical magical resistance rating, saves for you and all your friends, more constitution, and the extra bonus stats on here, like the extra physical resistance rating, hit points, and positive healing amplification. Remember, maybe you're coming back, you haven't played in a while, they changed hit points. There's no more epic defensive fighting. You now get all your hit points in heroics. So at level 12, you can go Knight of the Chalice and pick up 25% competence hit points. It's the same stuff you would get for epic defensive fighting in the past, but now it's at level 12, so it's even better. And then Fade Arc Illusionist, Charisma, Hit, and Damage. You will need this for leveling, so make sure you take this. It's pretty straightforward, all defensive stuff. Which way should you go first? In my personal opinion, go into Sacred Defender to pick up the stance. So grab like the extra physical magical resistance rating here and an extra Lay on Hands and grab the stance. Grab Fade Arc Illusionist, and then finish off with Knight of the Chalice. So just get the stance, 6 points, get Fade Arc Illusionist, 7 points, that's 13 points, and then everything else into Knight of the Chalice, and just take all this stuff. Get the Cleaves, get the Exalted Smite, get the Divine Might, just go all the way up the tree. That's the order I would do there. And then we have the Epic Destinies. Now this character is actually going to be using Divine Crusader, Unyielding Sentinel, and Dreadnought. Dreadnought is just to give some extra damage and health along the way. Unyielding Sentinel, same thing, damage and health along the way, as well as getting Hands of the Sentinel, so your Lay on Hands uses your total character level. This means when you're in Reaper mode or doing level 30 stuff, your Lay on Hands actually heals for a ton. And on top of that, you get Renewal, which is just a useful heal for yourself and others. And finally, Divine Crusader. Now, there's two reasons for using Divine Crusader. One, it's very good on a Paladin. You get the extra smiting stuff and all the extra bonuses, healing amp and what have you. But two, you get this ability, Heavenly Presence. This makes you immune to Petrification, which is essential because Mineros Takers, one of the champions in Hardcore 2, or I guess Hardcore 7, is going to turn you to gold when it hits you. And that is fatal. You get turned to gold. It's not like you die, but you're gold now. So the monsters you're helpless, they do tons of damage. And Mineros Takers are very common because they are a champion. So this prevents you from turning to gold, so you become immune, which is super rad. And then just good other offensive stuff. So pretty straightforward Epic Destinies here. And then I also put out a gear list of items. This is a very straightforward gear list. Important note about all the gear lists. These attuned weapons, you can't get an attuned dinosaur bone weapon because, I mean, you could if you ran the raid enough, but you're not going to. They just don't have regular bone warhammers on the wiki, or not on the wiki, on this builder. So Matrim hasn't put that in here yet. But just use the regular bone warhammer, which you can get by just doing any rares in the landscape and picking up the weapons itself. And the basic gist of it is part of the family set. Here, some winter pieces to give you some extra defense, and then just a couple good items around to get you the rest of the stats that you need. So your character will end up being fairly tanky and defensive, good amount of hit points, good amount of physical magical resistance rating, so you're not going to die when you're trying to do Reaper mode, and you should have a good time on a single weapon fighter Paladin. Now, Tiefling Stormsinger. I've recommended Spellsinger Bard many times here on the stream, but today we're going to be doing Stormsinger for a couple of reasons. It's basically Spellsinger, but with more damage. And I think a lot of people can probably get behind that. You drop all of your enchantment. No enchantment DCs, nothing like that. It's all evocation. You just blow everybody up. So max charisma, get some constitution, you're a tiefling. Then we go into the feats. Very standard feat progression. Maximize spell and all of that. But something you're going to notice in a lot of these build guides, not just this one, shield mastery feats. Why are you taking the shield mastery feats on a bard? I don't understand. Don't you want more health? Well, there's been a change actually into the game that makes it so that you get more health for every combat style feat that you have on your character. So shield mastery, improved shield mastery, and greater shield mastery. As a result, these actually give more health than toughness. And if you just happen to equip a shield, you also get the defense. So a lot of the characters in this list will have combat style feats thrown into their characters. Don't be scared off by that. It's just because these give hit points. And then if you happen to have a shield, they give you even more defense. And this character will use a shield later on. But still pretty standard array of bard feats and abilities, taking some extra defensive stuff. And again, epic will, so that way you don't fail the important will saves from the Champions of Hardcore Season 7. But again, pretty standard defensive stuff. Sign of Celestia because you want evocation DCs and health. Even though it might be generally useful to use maybe the Sonic one, Feywild, it doesn't give evocation DCs and it doesn't give health. This one gives evocation and health, so it's pretty rad to have. Toughness is actually not a feat here, so you can't take toughness. Which I completely forgot about, because you can't take it at this feat, and you can't take legendary toughness, so I guess that you are taking Crush Weakness? You will make stuff helpless. No, you won't. Huh. I forgot that you can't take that feat. I was supposed to fix that before I started streaming. Well, you're entirely up to you. You can take whatever feat you want. Or alternatively, you can take toughness instead of deific warding down here, which is probably what I would do, and then just take deific warding up here. Perfect. Perfect swap. Good job, Strimtom. All right, so spells. As a bard, Stormsinger. Important note that these are the endgame spells. So these are all the endgame spells here. Lightning spells, shout for Sonic and other things. But during the leveling process, take the low-level spells. So don't take Merfolk's Blessing and Featherfall on the low levels. Instead, grab Shocking Grasp, grab Sonic Blast. Soundburst is an amazing damage spell, so you want to be casting that. Stuff like that. Take the damage spells in the leveling process. However, you do want to have Master's Touch for later on, and I'll explain why. And Greater Shout. Greater Shout has a bug in the game. It might get fixed on the patch. We don't have the patch notes. But if it doesn't get fixed, this has no saving throw on it. It just always works. You always stun monsters. So Greater Shout is your stun. You can just Greater Shout things and stun them whenever you want. So keep that in mind. It also stuns Reapers. So very, very good. Enhancement to trees. Spellsinger and Stormsinger is where you spend almost all of your points. Stormsinger, because it gives you a ton of damage, crit chance up the tree. For some reason, Efficient Maximize only costs 1 point, so take this as soon as you can because it's super good. This grants you plus or 9 off the cost of Maximize and 9 off the cost of Maximize, so 18 off the cost of Maximize for only 6 enhancement points, which is massive. It basically means you can maximize during the leveling process. Grab Snowball Swarm out of Stormsinger and Shout out of Spellsinger, so you have 2 amazing spell-like abilities for leveling. Grab Horde of Thunder as well. During the leveling process, I would recommend taking the spell-like ability for Sonic Blast during the leveling process, but not afterwards. Similarly, I would recommend, it's not in the builder here, but there's a spell-like ability for Cure Wounds. I would recommend taking that during the leveling process out of Spellsinger, but just not at the end game. And then War Chanter is just for some extra defense, gives you some health, gives you Song of Heroism, which is nice, etc. But how do you go through this tree? Here is how I would recommend you go through this tree. Even though you're a Stormsinger, and I know it's really tempting, just go up Spellsinger and get Sustaining Song as soon as possible. This is the best thing in the game. It's so defensive, and it's so useful. You can also take Frolic here as well if you want, but you want to get this like as soon as you can. This is going to keep you and your whole team alive. Get this right away. Okay? And also, weirdly enough, all this Stormsinger stuff is good for like epics, but it's not really great as much for leveling. You're going to be a Spellsinger for the most part. You're going to take Spellsong Vigor and basically just go tier 5 of the Stormsinger or Spellsinger tree, get this mana regeneration song, get the Horn of Thunder over here. And then once you're at 20, you want to respec into Stormsinger and then take all the stuff out of Stormsinger. But Efficient Maximize is good during the leveling process. Snowball Swarm is good, but you don't really need the crit. You don't need the charisma. You don't need this other stuff. Just grab like the movement speed, grab the Efficient Maximize, the Snowball Swarm, and then mostly just go Spellsinger and then unspec out of this to this tree once you hit 20 because the extra Spell Song Vigor spell points is really good while leveling. It's insanely good while leveling, and it's very bad in epics because it doesn't scale. It just gives you 2 health or 2 mana every 2 seconds, which is amazing when your spell point pool is 600, and very bad when your spell point pool is 3600. So keep that in mind. Epic Destiny wise, this is something I want to talk about. So you're going to notice I'm going to put Unyielding Sentinel a lot of characters. That's because this is 105 health for all these points, plus all the defenses here. So very, very useful. Primal Avatar is great because it gives you access to Thunder Snow, a very powerful spell you can just cast all the time and do a bunch of damage. And then finally, Fate Singer with the Mantle. Now, usually you would use a different mantle, but the reason why I'm recommending Fate Singer is 1, it gives you temporary hit points whenever you do anything, which is nice. But 2, you have Sonata to Serve, which gives you immunity to arcane spell failure. This is relevant because once you have this, you remember how you have all those shield mastery feats? Yeah, now you can equip tower shields and there's no arcane spell failure. But you need proficiency with your tower shield to get all the benefit out of it. Well, don't you worry. You also take the spell Master's Touch. So now, in epics at level 23, you can throw on a tower shield, hit Master's Touch, and you have no arcane spell failure. That's why this Bard has 200 PRR, right? You're just going to take a third of damage. So you barely take any damage compared to what other people take, which is very, very good. But the rest of it's pretty stock standard. Damage from Primal Avatar, defense from Unyielding Sentinel, and all the good things in Fate Singer. Even though you're not an enchanter, you still take Cut the Strings, because for whatever reason, Cut the Strings just kind of works on everything. It's great. So really good stuff. Would recommend. Oh, you don't want to be using Stormcatcher. You want to be using Strike Accord and Echoes of Discord. You just have to take Stormcatcher to get to Thunder Snow. Stormcatcher is an epic strike, so it shares a cooldown with Strike Accord, but Thunder Snow is not, and you can just cast it, and it's very, very good. As far as itemization goes, for this character, I went a little wild over here, and instead you're going to be picking up the Walking Ancestor set for the Mana Weave and all this stuff to get like a good amount of defense and charisma, as well as the Isle of Dread Curse for some more defense, and then Eminence of Winter for just a couple more pieces for a little bit more defense from the shield and the boots here. And again, another Dinosaur Bone crafted weapon and another Dinosaur Bone crafted artifact. You're going to notice a lot of Dinosaur Bone crafting. Isle of Dread really makes Hardcore League a lot easier because the items are very good. So I would recommend getting that. Conveniently, if you're watching this video, you don't actually own Isle of Dread, it'll become available with DDO points in December. So that could be helpful. And it's going to take you a while to get through the rewards anyway. Next up is Druid. Caster Druid is, as some people know, one of the best character classes in like the whole friggin' video game. It's super duper strong. And so here we are looking at Hardcore Shifter Druid. This character is going to be a cold Druid at endgame and is very, very, very strong. So Constitution and Wisdom, all the stats that you really need. As far as the actual tree here, you're going to be grabbing all of the, Empower, Maximize, Quicken for your feats because you have so many spell-like abilities. In the early levels, especially like 1 and 2, 3, you can just go Wolf Form, cast the spell Flame Blade, and just melee some people when you get the spells, in between your actual spell-like abilities and spell casts. But once you get higher levels, you get some AoE spells, it really starts to get a lot better. Where the character gets very strong is when you get to level 17, your character can all of a sudden take the Water Elemental form, so you have like all those extra stats on there, and you start casting Ice Flowers, which you get at 50. So basically, until level 17, you're a Fire Druid, and then once you get to level 17, you become a Cold Druid, casting Ice Flowers and Tsunami, and you don't need anything else. We'll go after the spells in a bit. However, this character also grabs Burst of Glacial Wrath for freezing people, as well as the Epic Spell Power Cold, and some other defensive stats there. Legendary Toughness, this character, you want to get your +2 tome from 1750 Favor, as well as putting 1 point into Constitution. And this allows you to take Legendary Toughness, which is why you have a lot of health on this character on a Spellcaster Druid, which is very cool. Remember, this is also not including any Reaper points. So with Reaper points, your character will easily be able to go up to like 21, 2200 on a First Lifer, which is very cool. Also, I should change one of these. No, you need Toughness. Usually, for the other ones, I'd swapped out a combat style feat, but Toughness and Epic Toughness gives more health. And so Toughness and Epic Toughness end up kind of filling the slots here as opposed to the natural fighting feats, which might also work as well. As far as the enhancement tree goes, it's fairly straightforward. Season's Herald, you want to take stuff. For leveling, don't take the crit line, instead take this spell-like abilities. But once you get to 20, swap it out. Get rid of all of this stuff, take the crit line along the way. Spell-like abilities are really, really good during leveling, but in epics, you have amazing spells, especially once you get to 17. You don't need any of these spell-like abilities anymore because you're just going to be casting Ice Flowers, so that's when you want all of the crit for your spells. Fade Arc Illusionist gives you greater color spray, which is really nice, as well as some extra spell power. 1 point in Nature's Warrior is good because it gives you 8 health for 1 point. It's a really efficient point. Nature's Protector is even better because not only is it 8 health for this point, it's also 16 health for every other point. So 16 health and 16 health here, which is good. But also you get Nature's Defense, which gives you a whole bunch of defense here and some saves. And on top of that, you also get Heavy Armor Proficiency, which will come up in conversation when we get to items. And then lastly, the Shifter Tree. The Shifter Tree is probably something you're not going to be spending points in right away, but what it does give you is more Wisdom, extra Constitution while you use your Shift. Important note, the Shift that you get will give you Dexterity and Wisdom. It's now also going to give you Constitution, but you can't shift or you can't cast spells while you're using your Shift for being a Shifter. So one of the base abilities you get. So the solution to this problem is you get because this is a Beast-Hide Shifter. Oh, this is Beast-Hide Shifter. This is a Constitution one. I'm an idiot. I forgot what I was talking about. This is a Beast-Hide Shifter, which might seem counterintuitive because usually there's the Wisdom-based shift and the Constitution shift. Which one would you choose? The reason why you go Beast-Hide Shifter here is because in Epics, you don't shift in Heroics at all. So you can completely ignore the Shifter enhancement tree until Epics. You're going to take an ability called Draconic Rage, which lets you cast spells while raging, which means you can use your shift as much as you like. So, you don't put any points in this tree in Heroics, just focus on the other ones first, which helps you focus. And then once you get to level 20, you can get the cast spells while shifting, and you can spend all the points in here. Because now, when you rage, or shift, it gives you 7 Constitution, which is good, 12 extra physical resistance rating, 30 healing amplification, immunity to fatigue, 5% hit points, and an extra 10 physical resistance rating. So a major amount of defense, but also only good in epics, so don't do it in heroics. And then lastly, your epic destinies. This character is going to use Draconic Incarnation because it's super duper strong, granting the Dragon Breath, which blows people up using your DCs, as well as having cheaper maximize, among other things. And the Dragon Form. This is great. You basically just press this button and anything you cast spells on will turn to gold, which is super duper good. Unyielding Sentinel gives you a bunch of defense as well as renewal. Druids have incredible healing in the form of Regenerate Mass, but you can Regenerate Mass and Renewal at the same time and have 2 heal over times ticking on yourself, which is really good. And then finally, Primal Avatar. The Mantle is really, really good. This is one of the best mantles in the game. But it's even better for Hardcore League here, not because of the damage. The damage is fine. The damage is whatever. Trust me, Druids do so much damage, the mantle is not as important. What matters is Evergreen. What this does is whenever you cast a spell, you have a chance to give yourself 100 temporary spell points. it says a chance. It's like 50% chance. Basically, every spell you cast is going to give you these temporary spell points, and you can't run out of spell points. This is one of the reasons why you don't need the spell-like abilities and epics, because once you get Evergreen, which is while you're in the mantle, so you want to get this sooner rather than later, by level 23, you should have Evergreen. Because this is unlocked at 23, you have an infinite amount of spell points. You can cast any heals you want. You can cast any damage spells you want. You never have to worry about, oh, should I cast every buff spell I have? Yes. Should you cast every damage spell you have? Yes. Should you turn on every meta magic feat? Yes. Because you're just going to be blowing everything up and never running out of mana. So that's really, really good. As far as the itemization goes on this character is running a combination of the Heroic's Influence from Sharn, the 3-piece set here, as well as a 4-piece Winter with the boots, bracers, belt, and helmet, Crown of Snow for freezing stuff, and then a smattering of other pieces. Dinosaur Bone crafted quarterstaff here because the quarterstaff actually gives you a lot of extra spell power. So this character is able to land like a lot of spell power. 900 cold spell power, feeling pretty good on a first life character. And then, of course, you've got a couple items around here. The new Goggles of Dusk from Army of Eternal Night is an amazing weapon. And then for the set of goggles, pretty much the best one in the game for any type of caster, druid, or cleric. And then we have the two-headed platinum piece. This is a artifact from Saltmarsh, and it might not seem like it's the best item because it gives intelligence, improved deception, like stats you don't need, but it grants spell absorption. And spell absorption is so useful. It just randomly protects you from spells that would otherwise kill you. And it regenerates constantly. So even though it's not the best artifact that you would usually imagine to use in this build, it's actually very, very, very good in this build. So, on Hardcore League. So that's why you're using the two-headed platinum piece from Saltmarsh. It's also really easy to get because you can just run around in the adventure zone and kill rares, and you'll eventually get this. As far as the spells go for Druid, I didn't really put most of them in here. Apparently, I got this build from somebody else. But basically, just take the damage spells during the leveling process. Again, Flame Blade at level 3 is really good for just leveling to get to some more damaging spells. But take whatever AoE spells you can, cast them. And as I said, your bread and butter is Ice Flowers once you get to level 17, as well as Tsunami. Tsunami does so much damage, you will press this, and it'll blow your mind. Nothing lives against Tsunami, which is why it's amazing. And nothing should live against Ice Flowers once you get this either, especially when you can turn into a water elemental. Hey look, it's a new idea. It's Caster Cleric. This is not a new idea. This is an old idea, but it's an oldie and a goodie. Caster Cleric is super strong, super defensive, and you're going to see why, especially with all these hit points we've got layered in here. High Constitution, high Wisdom. Let's get started. In terms of feats that you're going to be picking up, you're going to be taking the Maximize, Quicken, and Power route. Every spellcaster starting with these because they're too good for all your spell-like abilities. You're also going to be running Sun Domain because it gives you a ton of extra spell power. The turning stuff doesn't matter, as well as Searing Light, spell-like ability at 5, Sunbeam, which is very good, and Sunburst. These spell-like abilities are super good, and you're going to use Sunbeam, Sunburst, and Searing Light through the entire game, all the way through level 32. Very, very good spell-like abilities just have on there. Also grabbing Evocation and Greater Evocation Focus, so your actual AoE spells will land. However, just like the Bard, Shield Mastery, Improved Shield Mastery, Perfect Shield Mastery, getting all those extra hit points, very, very useful. Now you will notice something odd down at the bottom here. I took Perfect Two-Handed Fighting, and the main reason is because you get extra hit points up to 4 combat style feats, and Shield Mastery, Improved Shield Mastery, and Perfect is only 3 combat style feats, but I couldn't fit in any other ones, so Perfect Two-Handed Fighting gives you your 4th combat style feat. So instead of getting, I think it's 8 health per level on a cleric, you will get 16 health per level, which is quite a lot of additional health per level for these 4 feats. You also grab Embolden Spell and Intensify, so you have more meta magic feats for your spell-like abilities like Sunbeam and Sunburst, so it's very, very good. And then Scion of Celestia over here, just getting health, evocation DCs, light damage. It's the perfect thing for any type of cleric. Now, as far as the spells go with this character, Cleric's pretty straightforward. You grab like the low-level damaging offensive spells. The hardest part, in my opinion, for Cleric is getting to level 5 to get Searing Light. Before Searing Light, it might take a little bit of time. You're going to be casting Soundburst and meleeing a lot. Just group. There are so many low-level groups. Just group with people to 5. Just say, hey, I'm a Cleric, I'll heal you. Join parties, cast heals on people, and stand behind them while they get like chopped down by the waves of enemies in front of you, and you'll be fine. Then once you get your Searing Light spell-like ability, as well as just Searing Light, you're just like blowing everything up, and you're an unstoppable god. Then you get to Holy Smite and the Holy Smite spell-like ability, and holy guacamole, is that a good series of spells. Very, very good, and it doesn't get worse from there. Flame Strike, amazingly good spell. Comet Fall, great spell for leveling. And then once you get to even higher levels, that is when you get to Firestorm at level 8 spells, which is pretty good, and then Celestial Bombardment and Divine Wrath. Celestial Bombardment is probably the best spell in Heroics, just full stop. It does more damage than basically everything else. If you've never used this spell, the first time you use it, you will laugh out loud by how much damage it does and how it kills the entire room. You literally press a button, and then these fireballs come from the sky, and then it's just when the dust settles, everything is dead. Great spell. You should use it. Enhancement trees. Let's take a look. So, your character is going to be a Divine Disciple, and you're going to be taking all the light stuff and doing all the light stuff and getting all the light stuff. This stuff is pretty self-explanatory. You don't take the Searing Light spell-like ability because you get it from your sun domain, and it's the same spell-like ability, so you can't have both of them. You get the Holy Smite spell-like ability because this is going to one-shot every monster in every room once you maximize and power it, which is great. And it's even better when you fight demons or undead. It's hilarious. There's a couple things I did not take in this tree. Number one, I did not take the extra critical damage. 5% critical damage for 2 action points is too weak, and you're not doing like endgame raids where this 5% critical damage is going to matter. You're not going to be critically hitting most of the time anyway. You don't have the crazy past lives and the ability to afford getting extra crit chance. So this has very little value. Honestly, in my opinion, this is like too expensive anyway. And I didn't take Transcendence because I don't care about getting Path of Darkness abilities because those suck, so don't take them. However, something I do want to stress about Divine Disciple, this tree is the lefty-righty tree. I call it that because if you go left to right, it's the light abilities. But if I start right to left, you can actually start with the darkness. So darkness goes right to left. So here is how you should set up this tree. Before the level cap, you want to take light 1, 2, and 3, and dark 1, 2, and 3 by level 6. It's a huge amount of spell power. It's 30 universal spell power, like 60 light spell power, plus 4 to all of your saving throws, all these bonuses at level 6. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Because this is level 1, level 3, level 6, and then dark is level 1, dark, level 3, dark, and level 6, dark. It's just the raw stats. They're massive. You want to take them. You get so much spell power. It's really cool. Once you get to the level cap of 20, that is when you respec into taking the Priest of Endless Night up here. So keep that in mind. But until level 20, you want to go 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. You don't care about Sunbeam in your spell list because you have the spell-like ability. You don't care about Sunburst in your spell list because you have the spell-like ability. But then once you get to 20, you respec here. Falconry is 5% hit points. Really good. Plus some healing amp, physical resistance rating, and sprint boost so you can get around faster. Azamar gives you not only extra spell power and the healing amplification, but 5% more hit points from here as well, which is why you have so many. And then War Priest is just some hit points as well as some more spell power and physical resistance rating. It's just good all around. As far as the Epic Destiny goes, this character is going to, in fact, be an Exalted Angel. You're grabbing the Exalted Angel Mantle, which passively heals you with Holy Presence, and you also get a bunch of defense here as well. And Angelic Charge, so you can dash around to stay safe. Plus the Cure Wounds spell-like ability, and one of the best, most satisfying spell-like abilities in the game, Holy Fireball. 40 mana to kill a room. Very cool. Throw all your spell-like ability or your meta magic feats on here, and you'll feel great. Again, Unyielding Sentinel, grabbing all the defensives here, really nice. And then Primal Avatar. Primal Avatar is really good because it gives you, this is actually what Epic Strike you'll be using, Spring to Summer and Reborn in the Fire. These are both melee range fire spells, so you may not want to use them all the time for damage. You have a lot of damage spells, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. But Reborn in the Fire and Spring to Summer are also heals. So they deal fire damage to enemies and heal allies that are nearby you. So you can kind of just be kind of close behind some of the melee and then just Reborn in the Fire, kill all the monsters because it does a ton of damage, as well as heal all your allies back up to full. It's very, very cool, especially with the upgrade that gives you a bunch of dodge whenever you cast it, which is awesome and very, very good. Now, as far as the itemization goes, your character actually is using a shield, so you get all of the extra physical resistance rating. That's why we got the huge PRR. That's why we got the extra hit points, because the shield mastery actually does come in clutch. And it's very straightforward. Flame Cleanse Fury from Sharn, because that's a good set. 4-piece Winter, because it gives you a whole bunch of defenses. And then on top of that, just a bunch of stuff to fill up the slots. Dinosaur Bone Gloves, because they are both easier to get than the Gloryborn Gloves, which have the sacred DCs, but these ones also give wisdom, which is nice. Bottle of Shadows, because I couldn't think of what else to put in your trinket slot, and it gives you displacement and profane well-rounded, which is nice. And that new Cleric set of goggles, that is the best in-slot goggles for clerics. So very, very cool stuff. This build is very strong, and you should smash out the game with it. And my favorite part about it is you can just stealth and be like, oh, I'm actually a healer. And then you have free reign to sit in the back and just pile heals at people because your heals are so cheap and easy to use. It's just very, very strong. Now imagine for a moment, you don't want to get into melee range, you don't want to cast spells, and you kind of want to be able to deal with traps to get your 3000 favor, and that is why we are running Favoured Soul Inquisitive here. The idea behind the Favoured Soul Inquisitive, you do a little bit of multi-classing with Ranger and Artificer to get some extra feats, so your character is a little bit stronger, but on top of that, you're also able to pick up all of the extra good stuff out of Favoured Soul, the high wisdom, the heals, the spell points, so your character can be pretty defensive, and you can be a good stand-back sort of Inquisitive character. The skills are a little wonky. Where are the skills? Skills are a little wonky, so make sure you follow this to the letter. The idea here is to max optimize on everything. You'll have the spot for the end game, you'll have the search for the end game, you'll have the disable device for the end game. Your open lock's going to be a little bit lacking. You might not have the open lock to actually do anything, because that's just the nature of the beast with these types of characters. But you've got a good amount of heal. You've also got a little bit of jump to make sure your character can get themselves out of like a sticky situation. And then, of course, you got just a smidgen of haggle, so you get a little bit more money during the leveling process. Now, as far as the actual level up goes, you notice the levels are really staggered all over the place. The reason is because you want to have Artificer at level 1 for the trapping bonus skills. You want to have some Ranger as well, because you want to get as much Ranger as possible for the extra attack speed, among other things. Plus, you also get like rapid reload from Artificer. You're going to be picking up rapid shot from Ranger. Ranger also gives you precise shot, so you get a whole bunch. Pretty much every ranged feat is free, which is nice. And then 3 Favoured Soul is so you can get access to close wounds as soon as possible. This is the most important thing. We'll talk about close wounds in a bit, but you want 3 Favoured Souls so you can get close wounds right away, and then you kind of max out the Favoured Soul. You will notice, because there's extra feats, Shield Mastery, Improved Shield Mastery, and Greater Shield Mastery. You can't use shields as a Inquisitive because you're dual-wielding crossbows. But you do get free health from this, which is why your health is 1600 on a ranged character, which is very cool. And if you missed it, it's basically you get health for every combat style feat you have, so this is quite good. The reason why you take toughness here is because there's no other feats that you can take, though. Just going to give you the stats that you can actually be able to take on this character, because you can't grab any of the other ones. But yeah, other than that, just pretty much standard ranged affair. You take Watchful Eye, even though you already auto-search traps for being an Inquisitive, you just take Watchful Eye for the Shradi Champion bonuses that you get out of here. So, Enhancement Tree. This is where it gets kind of sticky. There's a lot of different points over here, so I'm going to try to go over it. Inquisitive. This is straightforward. Get all the good stuff in Inquisitive and don't take any of the bad stuff. You take Ask Questions first because Shoot Later is one of the best attacks in DDO. It's a +2 critical threat range multi-attack, so you just want to press this whenever you can. It does a lot of damage. Beacon of Hope. The order that you should go into here. Get Dual Shooter and Law on your side, as well as Improved Law for right away. So get Inquisitive, Dual Shooter, Law on your side, Improved Law. Get that right away, right away, right away. That's what your first 7 points should get. Then, once you take your level of Favoured Soul, go up Beacon of Hope and max out Close Wounds. And then you're going to throw Maximize into Close Wounds. This ability has a 1-second cooldown, it costs 2 mana, and it will heal you for half of your hit points once you get it. This is the bread and butter heal. Keybind this to something and just top yourself up and everybody else all the time. Close Wounds is almost free, it heals for 1,000,000, and it even gets better in epics with the bonuses to maximum cash level, so this is very, very, very good. You want to get Close Wounds right away. Then, once you have Close Wounds, then finish out the Inquisitive tree, because Inquisitive is really good. Out of War Soul, you've got Divine Will here you can pick up for the extra tactics, DCs, and hit chance and damage. You actually don't need the tactics DCs, but the hit chance and damage based off your wisdom. You go Azamar, because it gives you wisdom, and also this fun 5% extra hit points up here, which is super duper strong. And then you go Arcane Archer, because not only does it give you extra search and spot, which you will need to disable traps, but it also grants you hit chance and the Imbue dice. Imbue dice is the new mechanic that affects your Imbue here, and it will give you a lot of extra damage, so you really want those extra points of Imbue dice. Also, War Soul gives you Imbue dice as well, so a lot of these things are really, really powerful here in this tree. In the Epic Destinies, you're going to notice another trend. Unyielding Sentinel here, picking up the extra hit points where you can, as well as some of the bonus heals. Shirati Champion because it gives you more damage than anything else, also allowing you to get Listen, Search, and Spot. You also grab the Technician for Search and Spot out of here as well. Your character should be able to disable pretty much every single trap in the entire game on this character, as long as you have like a trap swap, maybe with an intelligence item. A great intelligence item that you can get, Acolyte's Lenses from Lost at Sea, is Intelligence, Insightful Intelligence on a pair of goggles. And then you can get like the Keylock Ring from Sharn, or sorry, not Sharn, from Ravenloft, and you have all the trapping stuff, which is really nice. But Shirati Champion, because it gives you a whole bunch of damage, and Hunt's End is like one of the best abilities in the game. If you've never used it, you should give it a shot. Plus also, when you turn on Inexorable Advance, you kill everything you shoot at. So very, very good. And then Shadow Dancer gives you a bunch of sneak attack damage, as well as the disabling stuff. Dimension Door, which is just a useful thing to have for everybody. And because you already have, you don't have evasion, so this gives you evasion. So now you'll have evasion as well, because your character will be wearing light armor, because the only good range set has light armor as its requirement. Speaking of light armor, you're going to be using the Wildwood set from Sharn, because it's got the light armor here. Again, the armor is all for endgame. For if you're leveling, just use whatever you can get the best, your hands on the best. Light armor here, 4-piece winter set using the Necronomic Cannon. Your root arm damage doesn't matter, but the Necronomic Cannon is great because it gives you hit points, as well as the Evil Shot, Trap the Soul. So when you shoot people, you can instantly kill stuff. Ghostly, and it's a winter item. So you can have, this is here, plus the Deep Snows, Nocturne Ring, and the Winter Court Necklace. Now, some people have noticed that this gives insight, so extra threat generated, which is bad for a character like this, but that doesn't matter because this is melee threat. Doesn't affect you, but it does give you True Seeing as well as Fortification, both really, really nice stats, considering there's a lot of Fortification bypassing champions in this hardcore league. And then outside of that, just, Dinosaur Bone Ring because it's really good. Dinosaur Bone Crafted Crossbow because it's the best one. You're going to notice I'm going to put Dinosaur Bone Crafted Weapons on this entire list. Really, really good. If you can't pick a Dinosaur Bone Crafted weapon, just grab a Barovian weapon or like one of the ones from like Ravenloft for free. Or go get the Nightshade Shooter from Sharn, which is also a good option. Another item you want to keep track of, Raven Sight. This is, Insightful Wisdom is like very hard to get in this game, and I don't know why. Either buy an augment out of the DDO store and slap it into an item, or when you get to level 20, you have to go farm out enough of the upgrade materials so you can upgrade a normal Raven's Sight from Last Stand into an epic and then a legendary Raven's Sight. So make sure you do that beforehand. If you don't want to upgrade one, again, just buy an Insightful Wisdom augment from the store, put it into an item, and wear whatever goggles you want. When it comes to spells in this character, your character gets a ranger spell, take Ram's Might for its +2 damage. You also get some artificer spells. Realistically, you just want Conjure Bolts. Enchant Weapon is nice because it's +1 to hit and damage, but Conjure Bolts is for Conjure Bolts. And then Favorite Soul, all defensive spells. A couple winners are going to stand out here. Number 1, Find Traps is really great because it gives you extra search, so you can search stuff whenever you need to. On top of that, Prayer gives you skills. So this is going to increase your skills. So before you disable a trap, make sure you cast Prayer. It also gives you hit chance and damage. Bless, hit chance. Divine Power makes it so that before you get to epics, your base attack bonus is equal to your level, which is very nice for physical resistance rating, extra hit chance. And then a bunch of defensive buffs, the heal spell, healing spells. And then Freedom Movement. I just took Freedom Movement Mass. I don't know what other spell you should take here. Maybe Spell Resistance Mass, Freedom Movement Mass. I like Freedom Movement Mass because this just means that anyone in your party doesn't have to deal with this, and it's nice to pass out to other people that you know. Now, in Hardcore League, tanks are golden. If you're doing Reaper mode, tanks are awesome. Having somebody who can tank stuff is so useful because it just means that it's just way smoother. So I'm playing a tank this time, but not just any tank, my patented fun tank that I'm going to be running through endgame. It's going to be a great time. However, there is a bit of a problem here, which is that any tank is a nightmare to level. Fortunately, Dungeons & Dragons Online gives every single character a Lesser Heart of Wood when you create them, which lets you reset your character entirely at the beginning of creation. So, since this is the case, this build is split in half. There's the starter, which is how you get to 20, and then the ender, which is 20 to 30. So once you get to level 20, you're going to use the Heart of Wood to respec into this fun tank ender build, which we'll go over. But for heroic leveling, super straightforward. Aasimar, Lawful Good Paladin, 18 Paladin, 1 Fighter, 1 Wizard. We'll go into why a little bit later. With Strength, Con, Wisdom, Charisma, all your level ups into Strength because you're trying to damage stuff. Alternatively, instead of this, you could also use the single weapon Fighter Paladin for the first 18 levels and use those stats. You just need to make sure you take Fighter and Wizard at the end. So what do you take? Two-handed fighting, power attack, improved two-handed fighting, improved critical slashing, greater two-handed fighting, force of personality for those will saves we talked about, and then also I like having Quicken on Paladin so you can cast spells faster. Your last two levels are always going to be Wizard and Fighter because they're necessary for the tank portion of this character. As I said, you can also use the single weapon fighter version Paladin of this. Just make sure that instead of taking 2 more Paladin levels in 19 and 20, just take Wizard and Fighter and it will be perfectly fine. It'll all come out the same. But the enhancement tree for this character also is going to be in here. Knight of the Chalice because you just want a two-hander and you just crush shit. Sacred Fender because you just want the extra defense and tank stuff. And then you put a couple points in Azamar. No big deal, no big deal. It's very straightforward. However, when you get, it's just two-handed fighter paladin. You just hit people. Your spells, I didn't go over the spells, but your spells, you're taking like Righteous Command for damage, Angel Skin for defense, Prayer and Bless for damage, Death Ward, this should be Holy Sword. Holy Sword for damage, and Zeal for damage. Really easy leveling process as Paladin. But once you get to level 20, you're going to be swapping into the fun tank Ender version of this set. And the Ender is a little bit different. This character is basically like entirely different from the regular Paladin. No strength whatsoever. You become a spellcaster Paladin, which is why I call this one the fun tank, because it's a very active tank build. But as I said, it is a spellcaster. So you're going to change it up. You need a little bit of wisdom, drop the strength down because you don't need it as much anymore, and all your level ups are going to constitution. I know starting with a 16 constitution is like a cardinal sin on a tank, but don't worry about it too much. It doesn't matter too heavily on this character. I also didn't include the tomes you would get if you wanted to go for like the extra favor and what have you in here. However, your feat total is going to change entirely. First, you want to take all of the shield mastery feats, shield mastery, improved shield mastery, greater shield mastery, and a perfect shield mastery. But on top of that, you're going to grab maximize, empower, and quicken. Remember that this feat order is set up like this to maximize the amount of things you get. You're not leveling with this, right? You start this at 20. So don't worry about like, oh, but I won't have the feats in it. It doesn't matter. You're going to be 20 because you're going to use your Heart of Wood to turn into this once you get to level 20. So shield mastery, toughness, all that good stuff. You want to be follower of the Blood of Vol. And I don't know why it keeps defaulting away, but you want to take the Blood is Life here. The Blood is Life is a buff that gives you fortification, health, PRR, and MRR whenever you use this. It's really, really good as a defensive tank cooldown, so great effect. Then in epics, more toughness, more toughness, more toughness, and intensify. Remember wondering why you take all these metamagic feats. And the reason why you take the metamagic feats is because this character's damage in epics revolves around Primal Avatar, Carrion Swarm, and Shard Storm. This is all you do for damage. You just cast all your metamagic feats onto this Carrion Swarm, Shard Storm, and with this, you will kill everything. Don't worry about the damage. You will be shocked how much it is with Maximize, Empower, Quicken, Intensify. This will do a lot of damage. So that is why you take all of the Spellcaster feats. At 20, you get access to all of that right away. So you want to use Primal Avatar, and you'll have all these defensive abilities. And your character just runs around with a shield and full plate and just cast spells at people. Also, extra health. Toughness, Sign of Celestia because it gives health. Pretty straightforward. Now, the enhancement tree is going to change up quite a bit. First, Sacred Defender is the main tree, going all the way up to the tier 5 to grab the Harbored by Light for the extra lay on hands and stuff. The Divine Revelation for the extra bonus to saving throws. Important note, because you're the tank, this is plus to saving throws on your allies. So you get +3 saving throws for you and your friends, So you give out +6 to saves, which is kind of convenient for all of your friends, and very, very good defensively. You also use Falconry in this build because it gives you the extra hit points here, 5% quality, as well as the Sprint Boost. Sprint Boost is awesome on a tank because it lets you relocate really quick, catch up to people. If you're lagging, you can run away from a bad situation, so Sprint Boost is good. Azamar Tree is great because the Azamar Tree grants tons of healing amplification, as well as this amazing ability. The hit points you don't get, unfortunately, because you already have 10% Sacred here, which doesn't stack, but you get PRR, MRR, and more saving throws. Again, very, very good. Additionally, instead of taking the extra positive spell power out of here, you don't really need spell power that much on this character, or positive anyway. You use the Divine Protector Purpose thing with the extra charges, and it's the same, it's just this is a cooldown that also gives you healing amplification. So your character gets a lot of healing amplification. So the rest of your points are going to go down here. Eldritch Knight, just 1 from Wizard, 10 health for 1 point, and then 15 health for 3 points. And then Pale Master, you just get some more health. You're just trying to get more health out of the tree, so you can have a total higher hit point total. And then Epic Destinies, as I said, Crown of Avatar, this is all your damage, bread and butter. You want to get this stuff as soon as possible. This is the most important tree. Spend your points here as fast as possible. These 14 points should be the first points that you spend. But then after that, Unyielding Sentinel is where you spend the rest of them. You want to take all the good stuff out of here. Take the Knight's Challenge, so you can get the extra damage, the taunt here. This is basically you throw your shield and it taunts targets, and once you get to throw the boom, it automatically stuns them, which is really, really good. You get the health. You get the Mantle of the Sentinel here for the extra defense, and also the Lay on Hand stuff. Not everybody takes this. In my opinion, I think it's very good. First, let your Lay on Hand scale off of your Constitution, which on this character is way higher. Your Constitution is like 20 points higher than your Charisma, so that's really, really good. And Light in the Dark makes your Lay on Hands area of effect. This means you have an instant full heal on anyone you want in an AoE, instant full life AoE, and this character will have about 14 Lay on Hands per rest. If anyone dies in your quest, they shouldn't, because you can heal them to full with 1 click of the button. So please do that. You also get Unyielding Vanguard, which makes you immune to death. It doesn't actually do that, but it gives you 10,000 temporary hit points, and you can't, on Reaper 4, which is what people are going to be playing, nothing will chew through this. So if you start to go down, just press Undying Vanguard and you're back to full and nothing's going to kill you for 30 seconds. Great stabilization tool. Very good. And then your last 6 points. Dreadnought just gives you a bunch of health. It's the most health you can get, so you just take health for the last few points. As far as the endgame itemization goes, this character is actually not too bad to gear out. For the most part, you're grabbing Guardian of the Gates, 3 set from Sharn, because it gives a lot of really good stats, as well as all the Intimidate you need. Intimidate's kind of one of the hardest stats to get on this character. Eminence of Winter, 4 set, using the Winter Shield, the Boots, Nocturne Ring, as well as the Cloak of Winter, so it gives you some more hit points. And also, Isle of Dread, Dread Curse. I didn't realize you'd be able to do this, but it's actually pretty easy. Use the Captain's Spyglass, because this is a Dread item. The rest of the stats on it don't matter. You just take the Spyglass. You get the Birch Lord Gloves, which gives Healing, Devotion, and Vitality, all stats that you want, plus you can put Wisdom onto this with the craftable set from Isle of Dread. You want the Kopru Bracers, which you can also put Charisma on from the craftable bonus, which gives you Profane Life Force as well, so even more stacking health. You get the Dinosaur Bone Belt, because it gives you positive crit chance, Ghostly, which you didn't have in Constitution. And the Blue Raptor Feather, which gives you Sheltering, Resistance, and Good Luck. Just amazing good stats. So you got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 piece right there, and that gives you Profane bonus to all stats and even more physical resistance ratings. You're up over 300. You got the MRR, you got the time delay. And then finally, the thing I couldn't change is Collective Sight. You kind of need this. There's nowhere else to get Insightful Charisma, especially not on goggles. You need the Charisma so you can intimidate stuff and for your saving throws. And also gives a quality bonus to magic resistance rating for 18, which is pretty good. So you get more magic resistance rating. You gotta love that. So this character is like extra tanky, basically can't die, and then you just have the Ring of Flawless Decay here, which is all your damage. This just gives you the crit and spell powers for your poison and acid, which is the Primal Avatar stuff. So it's super duper good. I play this one on the regular servers. This is the actual tank I use for endgame. This is like an abridged version with just more hodgepodge gear for running Reaper 4s. If you want to try it out, you should be doing a great job. Just make sure you don't level with this. Level with the Fun Tank starter or with the Single Weapon Fighter Paladin, and then turn it into the Fun Tank at 20. Just if you decide to use Single Weapon Fighter Paladin, again, the reminder, please take your last 2 levels as Fighter and Wizard, so you don't screw it up. Last but not least, we have the Roguey Bardy Warlock. This is a character that used to be the Arty Bardy Warlock that I wrote for a previous Hardcore League to do every single thing in Hardcore, and Roguey Bardy Warlock is the new replacement. Using Shadar Kai, you don't have to use Shadar Kai if you don't own it. You can use like a regular race like a Tiefling. In fact, if you don't own Shadar Kai, just use Tiefling and have a higher starting Charisma, which would probably be better. But the Shadar Kai gives you the chains, which really helps out with the AoE in the early game. This character is a trapper and can do all of the traps. Probably not endgame traps though, because you don't have the intelligence for it, unless you like really gear it out. But during the leveling process, you can get all the traps thanks to Bard buffs plus rogue stuff. It's got AoE damage thanks to the Warlock and the chains from Shadar Kai. It has single target damage thanks to being a single weapon fighter. And it's very defensive because you have temporary hit points out the wazoo. So these are the starting stats. as far as your level ups go, you pretty much take the Warlock later. So Warlock comes after. First it is Rogue, then Bard, then you take Warlock later. Effectively, you're just kind of like a melee Bard at the beginning of the game, disabling traps, helping people out. Again, because you have cure spells, you can cast some cures on people and help them out in the couple early levels. You're grabbing single weapon fighting, improved single weapon fighting along the way, but you're also going to be taking Empower and Maximize. The reason why you want Empower and Maximize is because your character will be able to use the Warlock abilities to cast like huge AoE damage effects, which are nice, which we're going to be looking at there. Also, you can use this for cures in the early game, which we're talking about in a bit. And then as you get to the higher levels, you picked Great Old One Pact because I wanted to be Celestial, but you can't be Celestial if you're chaotic, and you need to be chaotic, so Great Old One Pact it is. The reason why you need to be chaotic is for Harbinger of Chaos, which gives you a massive amount of damage, which is just super duper good. So I went with that instead. And then you get the extra Eldritch Blast stuff, perfect single weapon fighting, and then Sign of the Planet Earth. This is the only one I didn't take Celestia. You could still take Celestia if you wanted. So Earth is just because it gives PRR and Imbue dice, which is very good and a lot of damage. If you want more defense, or like health instead of PRR, you can go Celestia. It's just 150 hit points. But you might want that over top of the Plane of Earth, although Plane of Earth is much better for this actual build because it's super duper strong. Now, as I said, this is going to be a little complicated. I'm going to do a lot of telling you what to do and telling you to do this and that and changing things up. This character uses all of your enhancement trees. As you can see, Enlightened Spirit, Tainted Scholar, Swashbuckler, Assassin, War Chanter, and Fey Dark Illusionist. But the basis for this build is actually Fey Dark Illusionist. You want to be using Illusory Weapon because this allows you to get charisma to hit and damage. The problem is you can't use this until you spend points in the Fey Dark Illusionist tree or take a level of Warlock. So at the beginning of the game, you're going to put points into Spellsinger and grab Spellsinger Studies for magical training. So you can have magical training here. So that's 4 points. And then you're going to spend your next 3 points in Fey Dark Illusionist, picking up the Illusory Weapon here to get the Shadow Blade. The Shadow Blade is just super good. It's the weapon you're going to use the entire game. There are 2 benefits to this weapon. One, it bypasses basically every immunity, so you don't need to carry a bunch of weapons, except for golems. But everything else it just does full damage to, which makes it very, very convenient. And 2, it levels up with you, so you don't need to worry about having a level appropriate weapon. You always have a level appropriate weapon because this is your level. So very, very good. And the second thing is Spellsinger Studies also gives you access. This is a multi-selector spell-like ability for Cure Wounds. So what you can do is when you are leveling as well in the early levels, you can take the Cure Wounds spell-like ability here, and then you can maximize it and empower it, so you can have a good cure for the general leveling part in the early game. You don't need it later, but it is nice to have for the early leveling. So go back to put this in. But the rest of the stuff, let's go through it. War Chanter gives you Imbue dice, which is really good once you actually get the Imbue out of Enlightened Spirit. Assassin gives you also Imbue dice out of here. Important note, the tree is actually not organized like this. It's supposed to be in Venom Blades down here and Toxic Affinity up here. Also, this is supposed to be 3 points, but the builder is wrong. So the extra point I have in Stealthy would actually go into the Venom Blades. So it would be 8 points basically, but it'd be 1 point in Stealthy and then 3 points here, 3 points here, but whatever, it is what it is. This is a lot of early level damage. If you want to take this, since you get Assassin pretty early, you can grab this as well for some early single target damage to work off of your chain. Then you have Swashbuckler. You got to take Swashbuckling and you got to grab Arcane Marauder because you want to use an orb with this character because orbs give you a lot of stats and they're very, very good. So you want to have the Swashbuckling here. This gives you a lot of damage. But why Warlock? Because Enlightened Spirit is a huge defensive boost, giving you like extra armor or like defensive stats while you're wearing armor, as well as this aura that's constantly pulsing out and dealing AoE damage for free, so you don't have to do anything. On top of that, you get access to resist energies, which you put 1 point in, and then for 60 spell points, it gives you resistance to every single element in the game. House P buffs are good for this, and they are nice, but before you have House P buffs, or also just generally if you don't have them because you get hit by Dispel Magic or something, you can cast Resist Energies, which is great. And then you get Eldritch Burst and Spirit Blast, which just deal damage based off of your Eldritch Blast, and you can also maximize and empower this. Now, the reason why this character works so well is Spiritual Retribution here gives you a Imbue, so this allows you to add damage onto your Eldritch Blast and melee attacks that is light damage. So the extra Imbue dice from Assassin adds light damage to your attacks. The extra imbue dice from War Chanter adds light damage onto your attacks and your bursts. So it all kind of comes together. And then finally, Tainted Scholar, because you want to turn your base damage from force damage into evil, so that way it all works off of light. So the only spell powers you need are light and acid. That's it. And even then, you can probably just ignore acid for the most part and just scale light spell power. And then whatever melee stats you can pick up. So it's not too bad. As far as the epic destinies go, you're going to be using Fatesinger as your main epic destiny because it just has a lot of good utility, good scaling single weapon fighting stuff. Greatest Shout, because Greater Shout has no save. I talked about this earlier, but this ability has no saving throw on it. It is bugged and it hasn't been fixed for like a year. So just use it. It's a 6-second cooldown. So basically just before you start a fight, just Greatest Shout. It stuns everything in its path with no save. And then you can start fighting your way through. And then once this comes off cooldown, do it again. It should have a save, but it doesn't. Next, the actual epic strike you're going to be using is Carrion Swarm and Shard Storm. This is super high damage on Carrion Swarm. You can cast it on your way into a fight. Shard Storm is a defensive buff that deals damage, so it like basically covers you in these shards that deal damage to monsters, and also gives you 25% of your health as temporary hit points, which is huge, so it's a big defensive buff. Thorn gives you 1,000,000 damage on your AoE attacks, this mantle here, so you want to get this really soon. And then the Shared Mantle also gives you extra damage. By the way, if you don't know where to spend points in here, this is first. Get the Primal Avatar stuff first, then get the Unyielding Sentinel stuff because you want to get Renewal, because this is just one of the best heals. So grab like the points here, then grab the points here, and then the remaining points you want to go into Fatesinger later. Fatesinger is the least important thing out of this tree. Primal Avatar is amazing and gives you 1,000,000 damage and defense. Unyielding Sentinel, again, same thing, super good. So you want to grab this stuff first, especially Renewal. And then Fatesinger at the end, because it's just good defensive stats. And last but not least, we have itemization. So what items do you use? Number one, you don't use Esper the Shadowblade. This is a raid weapon. I just don't have a stand-in for the Shadowblade. So this is the only weapon that is a Shadowblade. So I'm just putting this here, but this would just be your Conjured Shadowblade. Basically, you're going to be using the Walking Ancestor set from Isle of Dread here, which is pretty good. 4 pieces of the Winter with the Prince's Gauntlet, which is nice. And then on top of that, you're just grabbing some extra defensive stats. So like Resplendent Fury here for the Radiance, the Flame Guard's lenses, whoops, for like all your Double Strike, because you don't really have Double Strike built into this build, as well as some Deadly. The Raptor Feather for some extra defense, because this is like super duper good. Signet of the Sky and Pendant of the Sky is all of your spell powers in one. You won't have a lot of crit on this build, but don't worry about it, because the spell power just means you can just pump through damage onto people. And then you have the Ring, Legendary Flame and Frost, which is also a good amount of damage on this, or sorry, good amount of defense, giving you the Sheltering, Insightful Sheltering, everything all over the place. It's quite good. Plus the 2-piece set from the Inferno here, from the Flame Guard's lenses. Important note, if you don't want to use this, instead you can also go with the Ring of Flawless Decay, which gives you the acid crit and stuff for your acid spell power. So for your like Primal Avatar stuff. Both are good. Which one's better? I don't know. They're both useful. You already get the negative spell power here, so it would be just for the acid. Again, it's not entirely necessary. Both are fine. And if you're already farming TOE or Temple of Elemental Evil, you might as well use both of these things. I'm going to say last but not least, I entirely forgot to talk about the spells. The Bard spells don't really matter. Cure Wounds is pretty good. Expeditious Retreat is really nice for the leveling, and Feather Falling is just convenient for like not falling off of stuff. And then out of the Warlock spells, realistically, all you care about, Dimension Door is super good. Please take Dimension Door. It's one of the best spells in the game. Jump is great for jumping on stuff. Shield is great for protecting yourself. And Evard's Black Tentacles is awesome. This spell, what it does is you cast it, and then monsters inside have to make a save. If they make their save, they can freely move. However, it deals damage to everybody. If they stay in there for 2 seconds, they're grabbed with no save. And that's why this spell is so good, because you can just like cast it, any monster standing inside of it for too long just gets stuck and start taking horrendous amounts of damage, and you have free reign to do whatever you want. So it's very, very, very powerful. And then finally, Protection from Element's Mass. It seemed like it's the best spell, but it's really defensive, and because you actually are using the Primal Avatar tree, I didn't take this enhancement, so ignore me. It's still a good spell. I don't even care, even though I didn't take that. Yeah, good spell, good abilities, and that's what I got for you. So this has been your Hardcore Season 7 build guides. I know I talked a little bit faster than usual, so I wish I didn't, but you know, I've got to get this out. We're running out of time. SSG only gave us 1 week I will have a guild running on Hardcore League Season 7. So if you would like to join it, information will be posted here on the channel, and it'll also be in the Discord. So if you haven't joined the Discord yet, join the Discord below, and I'll be posting the information on the day once I get the guild and name and everything else set up. So you can join the guild should that be something you want to do to play hardcore. We're gonna have I'm gonna buy all the ship buffs. I'm gonna be pushing a character to cap to get lots of gold, so you can keep all your gold for yourself, and it should be a pretty good time. Additionally, on the release day of Hardcore League, I will be doing a 1 to 20 full push. So if you're like, oh man, I want something in the background while I'm leveling, or you're looking for some hot tips on what to do, just go to twitch.tv/Strimtom on the release day of Hardcore League Season 7. That is next week, Wednesday the 7th. And you can check out, I will be streaming the entire day, level 1 to level 20 in one single sitting on hardcore. It's going to be a blast. And I'm going to be exhausted and tired and dead by the end of it. And I'm going to hate myself, which is what happens every time I do a 1 to 20 on Hardcore League. That's great. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments about some of the builds, as I said, try to leave a comment and I will do my best to answer you. Or if you want to answer right away and I'm live streaming, that's the best way, because you just dump it in chat and I will get you instantaneously. Whereas the YouTube comments I usually answer like after the stream, or like usually in the morning when I'm getting ready for doing stuff. So you might have like an 8-hour delay on your comment. Whereas if I'm streaming, you just ask me right away. I'm rambling. I'm going to go. Bye-bye. See you on Hardcore, and don't die.